Alright, this is part two of Section of the Collection Kaiju films, and I'm going to try to run through this real quick. We ended with the end of the Showa period and Terror Mechagodzilla. Of course, we're just kind of taking one last look at Godzilla and Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus. It's a shame because Titanosaurus was actually supposed to be used in a few other films, um, and for whatever reason they just didn't use them. There was a lot of budget reasons they had to cut them out. The next period we're entering is the Heisei period, or the Versus period. This ran from 1984 to 1995. Now, the first two films in the series I don't actually have in DVD because they've never been released in the United States, and I'm too lazy to go digging up my VHS copies of them. They were Return of Godzilla in 1984, was released as Godzilla in 1985 in the United States, and Godzilla vs. Biollante in 1989. Um, Biollante was a really unique kaiju as it was a combination of Godzilla cells combined with a rose, that's right, a flower, and, let's top it off, with the soul of a woman. Yep, wrap your head around that one. So moving along to what we do have, King is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Now, during this period, Godzilla has actually gotten a lot bigger. During the Showa period, he was about 50 meters tall and about 20,000 metric tons. Well, by the Heisei period, Godzilla was now 80 meters tall and was 50,000 metric tons. So he went from being 164 feet to 262 feet tall. Now in this one here, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, this was when they were actually playing with a lot of the history. They didn't the continuity. They pretty much ignored all the other films and really just tried to work off the original film. There's a lot of time jumping that went on in this film where they showed the creation of Godzilla, as well as they showed the three Dorats, these creatures that would they were like these little cute creatures, and they would of course be mutated into King Ghidorah. Also, then let me try that again. Then in 1992 we got Godzilla versus Mothra, or Godzilla and Mothra, Battle for the Earth. Mothra undergoes a bit of a change as well, starting to get more of a look of a butterfly that would keep manifesting itself further into the series. It was just a lot prettier creature than earlier. Godzilla is back to kind of being more of an antagonist in the series. They bopped around a bit. Sometimes he was a protector of the planet. Sometimes he was a scourge. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. Now this movie, if I'm not mistaken, was originally going to be a King Kong movie. But the rights to Kong were too much money. So they were going to do a Mecha Kong movie. But it was too much money again. So Godzilla vs. King Kong went by the wayside, and Godzilla vs. Mecha Kong went by the wayside, and we got Mechagodzilla 2. This one was actually instead of being a creature from outer space, a weapon from outer space, was a government created creation, and would later merge with a government ship that would cause them to create like Super Mecha Godzilla. Now, this also introduces Baby Godzilla. Not Minya, but an actual little Godzilla. Um, and introduced a new Rodan, which would be known as Fire Rodan. Um, there was a lot of more human emotion in this one here with the characters. When I don't want to really give away too much, but when one particular character dies, um, there's the other kaiju reacts strongly as to losing a sibling per se. Then we get to Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, 1994. I'm not going to go too heavy into these ones. Really wasn't fans of them. They were starting to bury Godzilla at this point. We got little baby Godzilla in this one as well. And then finally, Godzilla versus Destroyer. Destroyer was a harkens back to the original Godzilla with the oxygen destroyer. That was supposedly how they had created him. They always harken back to that film. The original Godzilla being destroyed by the oxygen destroyer, the bones are actually brought back, and the bones were used to create Mecha Godzilla. We'll find that out later. Anyhow, so this ends the Heisei period. Now we're in the millennium. Godzilla 2000. Ooh, too much light. I liked Godzilla 2000. I liked the Kaiju that he faces in it, which is Ogari, which is a combination of looks like kind of a space jellyfish that mutates into with Godzilla cells into this huge creature. Godzilla 2000, I think, is a really underrated film. Godzilla is big, mean, and I would have to say his probably the most. His spines are incredibly huge. These things in the back. In this movie, they're enormous. So, not much to say beyond that. I think anyone, if you have a chance to check it out, it's really a good flick. Not as enamored with this one, Godzilla versus Megaguirus. Megaguirus is basically, I mean, they kind of, it's like just a, I don't know, a big ugly bug. We've had enough ugly bugs. This was originally going to have Titanosaurus in it, and they actually pulled him. Titanosaurus was actually supposed to be in the Ghidorah movie, and Mechagodzilla 2 movie, I'm sorry. But last minute they replaced it with Rodan. Now we're up to, that was 2000 for Megaguirus. 2001, Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. Giant monster all-out attack. And now in this one here, they've actually, this is the only movie where King Ghidorah is actually reinvented. Ghidorah is one of 3 guardian monsters. The original plan in this movie, the guardian monsters were Baragon, Mothra, and Ghidorah. And the original plan was that they were going to use Baragon, Varan, and drawing a blank now. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'll leave it in the comments. But they dropped the other monsters because they dropped them because of they didn't think they could be popular enough to carry it, and they insisted on, and that was Anguirus actually. It was Anguirus, which is funny because being Godzilla's best friend and all. They replaced him with Ghidorah and Mothra, more popular characters. Ghidorah is also the smallest he's ever been. He's in around about 49 meters. So his original Godzilla height of 162 feet versus Godzilla being about 262 feet. There's an old legend of a eight-headed dragon who is a protector of Japan, and they intimate that Ghidorah is that eight-headed dragon, but is still immature and awakened too early, so all his heads hadn't a chance to develop. Now, in this movie, the special effects creator really wanted to use Varan, and Varan was to the point that he actually sculpted the Ghidorah heads to look like Varan. So if you see this movie and he doesn't quite look like the traditional Ghidorah, it's because it was an homage to Varan. Now we're back with Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. So this would be one that would be Godzilla X Mechagodzilla. Totally revamped Mechagodzilla in this one. This one came out in 2002. As you can see, this thing is huge. I don't know. I mean, I guess any type of Mechagodzilla movie can be pretty cool, but I kind of like the older, goofier looking one that eventually would become Black Mechagodzilla in the Godzilla Island series. So it's all right. Not as enamored with this one as the old ones, but maybe it's because I was a kid watching the other ones, and this one just doesn't ring as warm to me. Tokyo Godzilla, Tokyo SOS. Again, we were back with Mechagodzilla. We also have Mothra in this one, as well as Godzilla with a new revamped look, as you can see from the spines. This was another one, just to run on the theme, but originally they wanted to put Titanosaurus in SOS, but they didn't. Another thing about this movie was that there's a scene where there is a giant kaiju that is washed up on sea, and it was originally was a dead kaiju. That's how they find him on the beach, and it was originally going to be Anguirus, but they put the kibosh on it because of Anguirus' popularity, as well as him being Godzilla's BFF. They just didn't want to, rub fans the wrong way by having Anguirus' dead body in the ocean. So they used a lesser-known kaiju called Kanemura, I believe it is. It was the giant rock turtle from the Space Amoeba movie. So he makes a reappearance in the Toho series as a dead body. And then finally we come to Godzilla Final Wars. This is a movie that a lot of fans didn't like. Another reinvention. 25 monster fight here. I actually enjoyed it. Had a little bit of a Matrix feel with the what they called the mutants, which they don't look ugly. They're regular people. They just have superpowers. Godzilla fights a litany of different monsters in this one, including his nemesis, the crappy one that we refer to as Gino, the Sony Pictures Godzilla from 1998. They do pay respects to a few things where he does fight King Caesar, Rodan, and Anguirus. He manages to beat them, and he leaves them lying in a heap, and they're the only ones that don't get destroyed. Mainly as a nod to the fact that they were allies in earlier Godzilla movies. The others were always Godzilla foes, so they get destroyed. And of course, he does face out against what is known as Monster X at the very end, which has a very nice twist to it. And this would be the end of Godzilla. At least that's what they did, was they put him in the vault like a Disney picture, and they're going to wait until another 10 years for the 60th anniversary, and probably bring him out one more time. So we got about 2 years to wait on that. And this is a Japanese cut of Final Wars. Now that's the end of the Godzilla ones. I'm going to run through some other kaijus real quick. The Toho pack. Not a giant monster movie. It's part of the pack. Matango, which is the Attack of the Mushroom People, and one of Ishiro Honda's better movies. This one I mentioned, this is the last of the black and whites. This was, I believe, 1956. U.S. title was Varan the Unbelievable. In Japan, it was simply known as Daikaiju Baron, or Giant Monster Baron. Very underutilized monster. He was briefly seen in Destroy All Monsters, but it's strangely enough, his roar has actually been used a number of times. Megalon, Baragon, Gorosaurus all use variations of the Varan roar. Mysterians, part of a 3-picture spaceman movie, no monsters. But they do have a giant robot called Mogira, which is used later in the series as a anti-Godzilla weapon. The Japanese movie King Kong Escapes, where they did a Mecha Kong. This is also the debut of Gorosaurus, who fights Kong in this film. If you can see that photo, you can see how silly Kong looks. That's pretty much the Japanese Kong costume. As I say, Gorosaurus' voice was a variation of Varan, and it was actually a little more like higher pitched than what was later used in Destroy All Monsters. This is Classic Media's original Rodan movie, which is a fantastic film. Rodan's ginormous in this thing. He's huge. And one of my all-time favorites, War of the Gargantuas. This was basically going to be, after they did Frankenstein Conquers the World, with Baragon facing off against the large Frankenstein-like creature. This was supposed to be the sequel to it, and this was going to be, and they introduced 2 of these creatures that were spawns from the original. The green one was known as Gaia, and the brown one was known as Sanda. Gaia is a form of the term water. Original Godzilla suit actor Haru Nakajima played Gaia. He was also Varan as well, so he had a pretty big history of playing these things. This is a DVD I really recommend. It's such an enjoyable film. Almost all these kaiju ones are just tremendous movies. A lot of the older ones. This is the Rebirth of Mothra series. In the U.S. they call them Rebirth of Mothra, and they just numbered them. They've made Mothra now the protector of the planet. Now, in Japan, they actually, had other titles to the films themselves, rather than running with the whole, Mothra, Rebirth of Mothra. They basically called them Mothra, Mothra 2, which was Adventure Under the Sea, and then Mothra 3, Attack of Grand King Ghidorah. So they actually had 2 Ghidorahs in the Mothra movies. Deathu Ghidorah, which is Death Ghidorah, and then of course the Grand King Ghidorah. These, of course, are the first two movies, so you don't see Grand King Ghidorah, but that's Death Ghidorah, Deathu Ghidorah, and there's two on here, Dagora. I was never huge into Mothra, but beggars can't be choosers. Long out of print. Do you recognize that one? This is the Daimajin series. Daimajin was like a giant stone idol that transformed into a warrior, and there were 3 movies in this series. There was Daimajin, Wrath of Daimajin, and Return of Daimajin. These were not modern films like the settings. They were actually in feudal Japan when they took place. The first two are have similar feels to them. The third one has a little bit different, where it's more commoners are able to call for help from Daimajin. In the United States, these were released as Majin. Instead of Daimajin, it was Majin, Monster of Terror, The Return of Giant Majin, and Revenge of Majin. And of course, the Japanese were just the Daimajin, Return, and Wrath. The sets, if you can find this set, this is one of the best sets you're going to find for it. It's been released before. This is from, I want to say 2002. The 2005 was ADV put them out, and the first 2 films are in widescreen, but the third one is not. Wrath of Daimajin is actually cropped from 235 to 185. In 2007, Image put out individual releases of the AIP version of Majin and Return of Giant Majin, and they're cropped to 133, so they're just full-frame versions. So you don't really want the Image ones. You can deal with ADV, that's fine, but if you can get this one here, this is an earlier one that has better cuts of the film. Alright, real cheapy, not worth it. And there are better versions of this movie. I just have never been the biggest Gamera fan, and I hadn't gotten around to getting any of the Gameras. Even though the new ones, the revamped ones, are a lot better than the earlier ones, Destroy All Planets and Gamera. And finally, the television series Utaroman, or Ultraman. I'm running up to 25 minutes on this thing, so I'm going to cut it short and not get into this as much. Basically, it was the monster suit of the week against this super spaceman Utaroman. A lot of familiar creatures would make their way into this, including Godzilla, who they added like an iguana hood to him and called him Jiris. And there's Utaroman. So I'm over 24 minutes again, so I apologize for running on about this. And if anyone's stuck with me for that long, thank you very much for watching. This concludes section of the collection, Kaijus. Sayonara.